I'm Harry Rogers, and this is Class of the Past, the only place to come for in-depth interviews with former Luton Town players. Thanks again to all of you for reading or listening to the previous episode with Wembley hero Claude Nakpa. Don't forget you can enjoy all of the other instalments at classofthepast.com. This time, we caught up with defender Leon Barnett, a local lad who came through the ranks at Luton and went on to have a fantastic career in the Premier League. Leon spoke to me about what it was like to step foot into the men's game for the first time as a 16-year-old, and his FA Cup memories against the European champions, plus a famous encounter while at Norwich City. The former centre-half also discussed the tragic incident involving Saul Davis on the way to Portman Road in 2006. He also told me about his favourite defensive partner in a Luton shirt and how working hard opened doors to new opportunities. Let me know who you want to see next, but for now, here's what happened when I sat down with Leon. So Leon, welcome to Class of the Past. Thanks for talking to me tonight. Before we get into our chat about you at Luton, I thought it would be good to ask you a little bit about a certain game that you played in for Norwich City this time, but against Luton. Yeah. And I think you'll remember it. You'll remember it well. So, what were your memories of that? And were you quietly kind of thinking, actually, I'm quite pleased that Luton got a good result today?
No, it's obviously before the game. I was quite excited with the draw. I think it was the first time I sort of played against Luton Town, so it was quite an exciting moment for myself. Obviously, the result didn't go that way, but yeah, I remember being at Carrow Road, and I remember obviously they winning the game, obviously, but I remember me scoring a goal which was disallowed. But I think now, if you look back on it, it would have been given by VAR, but yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't. And obviously, Luton went on to go through to the next round.
I know a lot of Luton fans look back on that day, and it was amazing to think that you came through the ranks at this club that at the time were pushing towards the Championship, and here you were playing against them, and as a non-league side, and you kind of obviously went up to the Premier League. So yeah, it was a good result for us, but a not so good one for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I think we were sort of odds-on favourites to sort of progress to the next round, but I think, like I said, Luton, they have that never die attitude, and they obviously turned us over. And obviously, like I said, I think it's the best team done on the day.
So yeah, you're a local boy, born in Stevenage, came through the ranks at Luton. So how were you first spotted by the club?
So I remember when I was sort of 13 years old, and I joined sort of grassroots for a year, and I think the fitness coach was associated to our local grassroots team, and he just said, obviously, come along and for a training session. So I went along, and sort of, I know they offered me sort of a 6-week sort of trial basis, which I wasn't too happy about. But like I said, it was a chance to sort of play against the better players that were in my school year, and yeah, just progress there. I knew obviously as soon as I sort of started training and at the door, I think the players were well above my level, and I think they'd probably say the same. They never probably thought that I'd sort of make it as far as I have, and I think technically and tactically they were a lot better than me. Physically, they were sort of miles above me.
So you said about having to work hard because you felt like other people were better than you at the time. Was that something that you kind of took forward into your professional game, where you had to work? You felt like you had to work harder than other people.
Yeah, definitely. I think being a professional sportsman, I think you're always competing against others that might be slightly better than you, or I don't know, have a different way of thinking. But like I said, you want to win, and I think I've always been sort of that winner, sort of driven, sort of everything, put everything on the line to sort of get that result. And I think, I don't know, like I said, it was a good little step for me to sort of progress. Really, it was a target that I wanted to get to, and I don't know, every year I had sort of targets to get to. And like I said, one of them was obviously playing at Portman Road and making a professional debut. And yeah, just ticked them off along the way. So yeah, I think it's obviously definitely benefited me more than possibly others.
Mm-hmm. And what was the environment like around the club at the time? I mean, when you were kind of progressing and you were getting closer to that first team, the club, like I said, was on the up. I mean, they got promoted under Mike Newell in 2005 up to the Championship. What kind of players were maybe a good influence on you around that time? And yeah, what was it like to be around the team?
Yeah, I remember when I was sort of in the youth team, it was quite daunting, like going into the first team. I didn't really want to train with the first team. It was a bit weird. Like, obviously, I wanted to train with them, but they were quite a sort of a solid group. So I didn't really want to be the one that sort of breaks up that solid group. And I know you're entering into like new friendships, and I don't know. I think it was quite tough physically as a teenager going into men's football. But yeah, it was something like I always wanted to do, and something that I sort of took on the challenge, and yeah, it was something that I grasped quite well, and yeah, it was really nice. I think the change room we had, it was weird. There was loads of different characters, so there was always a character that sort of suit my sort of my sort of mood that I'd walk into. So you had Stephen Howard, that was sort of the big number 9. He was a bit of a friendly giant when you speak to him personally. We've got Kevin Nichols, who was captain. Bit like myself, always wanted to win. Everything was competitive. Always was sort of full throttle, whether it be in a tackle or a team talk. Then you had Al Berkovic, who was very friendly, Croatian. So yeah, you can get on with him. But yeah, there were so many different variants of people that sort of, I don't know, helped me settle in much more easier than what I thought I would do.
Mm-hmm. And in that environment, obviously you're trying to impress the manager to try and, get close to that first team. But I suppose you're also trying to impress your peers a little bit as well. How difficult is that to kind of take that step up from the youth side of the game into a more professional setting?
Yeah, it's difficult. And I think it's only going to get harder and harder every year. I think there's going to be, the football, no disrespect to any of the players that I played with, but nowadays you're getting sort of the modern game where you're getting sort of fullbacks being sort of like, I don't know, midfielders really, the amount of times they get turned forward. So I think for any youngster going into men's football, whether it's grassroots or not, it's a big step. Physically, that's probably the main sort of standout issue that you may struggle with. But I don't know. I think I was quite quick, so I think that would get me out of trouble quite a bit. Wasn't necessarily great with the ball at my feet, but I was very competitive and made it very difficult for opponent. So I think that worked in my favour.
Yeah, well, it wasn't long after you kind of started getting towards the first team under Mike Newell when we went up to the Championship. It wasn't long after that promotion that you started getting a few starts. Not starts, you started getting a few appearances. Sorry. Can you remember much about your debut or around that time when you were, on the cusp of the first team?
Yeah, I remember being sort of 16 and I sort of trained with the first team, and I didn't know really what it would mean to. And I remember sort of, I think it might have been Woking or Stevenage we were playing. And I was sort of in and around the first team, and there was rumours going around that you might be starting. So I've always prepared myself the right way. I've always sort of looked forward to games. I think as a professional footballer or any other sportsman that trains daily, come the weekend, that's sort of what you train for. That's what you put your hard work in for. So yeah, I do everything. I go to the gym. I do my fitness. I concentrate in terms of what the manager wants to be done on the training field. And try and replicate in a match. So yeah, I'd say it covers a little bit of a shock making my debut. But then I think that gave me the confidence to sort of build on. Really, I think if there was any sort of issues that I might have had in the game or anything that I might have dwelled on or made a mistake on, I'd always try and rectify it in the next sort of opportunity I get the football, or even the next game, or I don't know, the next sort of opportunity I get.
How important is that confidence side of the game? Because you said about having that ability and working hard to get there, but a lot of it's on confidence. So as a young lad, you said 16 yourself, getting into that environment. Yeah. It must be quite difficult with proven pros at that level, stepping in and trying to make your mark. How difficult is that?
Yeah, it can be difficult. I think when I was 16, I had no worries. It was I was living at home, didn't have no issues. I was playing a sport that I loved playing. Could happily have played for free, and it was something I enjoyed playing. So I don't think there was any sort of stress on that behalf. It probably weren't until I was a little bit older where I realised, I've got people depending on me, or we're playing an important game. I think confidence comes with good performances in training, good games, simple praise from the managers, the coaches, the fans. I think it's all of a collective sort of what we call it. I think it's all collective. I think it all comes as one.
He said about training builds confidence, compliments from the manager as well. Mike Newell was obviously the manager at the time. What was he like around the place? From like a fan's perspective, he seemed quite calm on the touchline.
No, he was really good. I thought he was anyway, especially towards the youngsters. I remember being a player at the time when he was there, and he was sort of fairly young as a manager. So I think he must have took the job in his 30s. So yeah, I think he sort of still had that player mentality. I think he still wanted to be a player, but understand he needed to be different and obviously distinguish being a coach and a player. So I think he gelled well with the younger boys, more than the older boys actually. So yeah, like I said, I had no sort of pressure. Like I said, it might have been the big games, whereas no disrespect once again, it wasn't really in many big games. And being a 16-year-old, I think you're allowed to make a couple of mistakes. But like I said, I think that the boys in the change room, they were quite positive. Any issues that I made, any bad games that I had, I'm sure they would have sort of tried to dig me out, and without being too big-headed, I think they knew that sort of I was a half-decent player. They must have thought, sort of protective of it. So I think I appreciate them obviously looking after me in that sort of way.
Who was the first person in the changing room then to call you out, or maybe constructive criticism if you'd done something a bit?
Well, no, I think in football you get sort of everybody sort of making constructive criticism. It depends on the way how you receive it and how you sort of try and turn it into a positive. So I don't think there was individuals. I think as a group I remember there was games where I had a nightmare, and you go to the change room and they're laying into you, and as a 16-year-old you're thinking, bloody hell, it's only football, but for them it's different. They've got a lot riding on it. So like I said earlier, that some of them have got sort of mortgage payments, they've got children to feed, it's their livelihood. So like I said, people have given me sort of stick in the change room, and I think when I've been older, I've realised, there's certain things you can or can't do, and I probably do the same to the youngsters. It's a part of learning.
And you said as well about you got away with a few mistakes because Luton weren't necessarily in the bigger games when you were coming through. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm imagining there was probably one highlight for you in that first season, which would have been coming on as a sub against Liverpool. Yeah. in that famous FA Cup game. As a young lad going toe to toe with the likes of Gerrard, Alonso, and I know obviously the club didn't come out on the right side of the result that day, and I know you only played the 15 minutes, but what an experience, I guess, to be on the same pitch as players like that who obviously just won the European Champions League. Yeah,
it was unbelievable. I remember the warm up. We were all sort of in a circle doing our stretches, and I was next to Enoch sort of Schwab, and he was chatting away, and I wasn't even listening. I can't remember what he was saying. I was actually just gazing over the halfway line at the Liverpool players, and I think he nudged me and said, you look a bit starstruck. And I was like, yeah, I am. Like they have got some team, and like I said, to get some minutes on that game was, I don't know, it was really enjoyable. I enjoyed it. I obviously look up to a lot of the players that were playing in that game. So yeah, it was definitely a personal target that I think I hit. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, like I said, I think it's gone down as one of the most watched FA Cup games. So yeah, it's good to be a part of history.
Yeah, definitely. And did you kind of know around that time? I mean, you sounded a bit starstruck, but you went on to play regularly against players like that, obviously past Luton. Did you kind of know at that time that when you were going up against these guys that you could maybe make that next step up?
Yeah, possibly. I would say I was starstruck when I go to sort of bigger stadiums and see bigger managers and and world's best players. I think that's just a challenge that I've set myself, and the managers obviously trust me with. I feel like I've got to make it as difficult as I can for the opponent and make sure I don't score as a defender.
Yeah, and you said that it was nice to be a part of history as well. Kenilworth Road under the lights. Maybe I'm biased as a fan, but it's a special place to watch football when the crowd's really up for it. What's that like as a Luton player when you got the crowd behind you, especially in like the big games like that? Yeah,
it's intense. It's good though. I think there's some players that sort of shrink under their sort of the lights and the atmosphere, and then I think there's some guys that maybe just take it on and embrace it and obviously use it to their sort of positive playing. But yeah, I didn't mind it. I enjoyed it. I think there's been times where I remember some of the boys that I was playing with, they got abused, not sort of heavily, but they were sort of been told they're not good enough and stuff like that. And I just thought from then on, I need to play to my best of my ability, because I don't really want to be abused like that. But like I said, football's football. People have got opinions. Always going to upset someone, whatever you do on the pitch. So I think you just got to go out there and make it as tough as you can. Work hard, and if you can't, if you don't do that, then you're in the wrong game. I think football's a great game. It's a big part of my life, and I think it's. I don't understand. For me, it's the best sport in the world.
Yeah, definitely. And after that season, it was the following year that you it was the second season of the Championship that I think you played all but 7 games that year. So you really pushed on and you really became like a mainstay of that starting 11. I know Curtis Davis left that summer, but what was it in you that changed? Do you think that, you got that shot and you kind of, you started playing more and more? What was it about that time and that summer that kind of transformed you into the player that you became?
I think it was just game knowledge. Obviously, watching a couple of games when I've been sort of been in and around the squad, not necessarily playing or on the bench, but I've been able to watch a lot more football. An understanding of what my players, I don't know, what their weaknesses are. So if I was playing with Chris Coyne, I understand what his weaknesses, and if he was to go up for a header and miss it, I would always be there. And just having a little bit of understanding in some of our players. Obviously, with the players that you play against, you monitor them and you can see what their strengths and weaknesses are. So I just think it's more game knowledge and game management, if I'm honest.
And who did you like playing with around that time? Like as a centre half partner, who was your favourite?
For me, I think without a shadow of a doubt was probably Marcus Heineken. He was a bit similar to me, really. He was quite laid back, and he was a lot better than me with the ball at his feet. So I could obviously just pass to him, and he could do all the sort of fancy stuff. But in terms of the physical battle, he was always up for that. And I don't know. I think we sort of gelled well for the season that we played. Obviously, Curtis Davis, I played with him in the youth team, which was great. But I just think on a professional level, I think Marcus sort of stood out for me.
I remember him. He was a great player for us. Really, really solid centre half, and alongside you, obviously. The club were moving definitely in the right direction then. There was murmurings after about 13 games, I think it was, that, I think we were sat in 5th and we were going in the right direction. Everyone thinking, are Luton going to, reach the Premier League for the first time ever? And then obviously on the way to Ipswich on the 29th of October, it kind of all changed. I just wondered what your memories were of obviously the incident with Saul Davis and how that affected the team at that time.
Yeah, I remember we were sort of in a good position, like you said. I think the team were high in confidence. We had a game plan to play against Ipswich, and I think everybody thought they felt very sort of happy with what the manager had to say and what our game plan was. And I remember, on the way to sort of Ipswich, it was a bit of a weird one, really. I remember being at the back of the bus, and a couple of the older boys, including Saul Davis, were sort of playing cards. And I don't know. He just said he couldn't feel the left side of his body. And I remember sort of a couple of the boys laughing, just saying, "Oh, listen, stop messing about. We need to finish this game." And Sol was being deadly serious. And I remember we stopped the coach. A couple of the boys, especially the younger ones and myself, sort of had a walk. And I can't remember who took us, but they took us away from this sort of situation. But that definitely took a knock-on effect. I think we ended up losing that game 5-0. And I think when you see your teammate that's, I don't know, a little bit uncomfortable, it definitely sends a message to you, especially through the game. And I'm not saying that's why we lost, but I don't think everybody's head was sort of in this, in the right place, for honest.
It must have been really difficult. I mean, we saw obviously in I think with the Euros when Christian Eriksen, clapped on the pitch and, his team had to go out and play on. Same for you, obviously, you see your teammate in that situation, you've got to kind of go out and play on, but it must have been really difficult. So what happens kind of to Sol afterwards? How was he after the event?
I don't think he was ever the same, if I'm honest. I remember Sol being sort of quite a solid sort of defender, very aggressive, and I don't know.
You say that again,
quite a bubbly person in the change room, but I don't know whether that aggression sort of faded away a little bit. And I don't know. I just think from then on, like I said, he wasn't the same player. obviously still a nice person, but I don't know whether it just took a little bit out of him. So yeah, actually, like I said, these things happen. I'm sure it would be the same for anybody else.
And you said obviously it was difficult. You know, as a young player, you went off to kind of avoid that situation, but you know, it must have still been there in the back of your minds. You know, we lost 7 on the bounce after that. Do you think that was the start? I know there was obviously trouble behind the scenes that we'll get onto, but was that kind of the start? Because it must have been really difficult to kind of get back to where you were after seeing your teammate in that kind of situation.
Yeah, like I said, I think it was difficult. I don't think that was the sole reason. I think that might be one of the reasons. But yeah, it is what it is. I think we as a group probably need to try and find a solution. I know that was an issue in the team that, you know, people were thinking about whether he was okay, because I know he was quite close to the older boys like, you know, Kevin Nichols and Steve Howard and Paul Undoing at the time. As a youngster, we were sort of, like I said, Saul was a bit of a legend to us, really. He'd always have a laugh and a joke, and I don't know, we'd always be thinking, you know, is he okay, or when's he back in, and little things like that. So it was definitely playing in the back of our minds. But like I said, I don't think we could just blame that for the sole reason. I think there was obviously issues going on around the club, possibly in the change room. That was a knock-on effect for us, sort of dipping in form.
And what do you think the other reason was then? You said that wasn't the sole reason. I know that was around the time that Luton's money situation and financial side of the game started to surface. You know, bigger problems started to emerge. That must factor down to the dressing room as well, I guess. You know, what was that a big distraction as well?
Yeah, I think it was. I think, like I said, the team were doing okay, but we were told sort of the rumours around the financial side of things. I think straight away, you know, you've got older players in there that have people dependent on them, so they've got families and, I don't know, properties that they need to pay for, and I think that sort of plays in your mind. You know, you sort of, I understand you want to play well and possibly make a big money move elsewhere, but you know, if you're only there for, you know, the remaining of the season, you've got to sort of try and think where your next step is. So yeah, I remember that message sort of going around the change room. And for me, like I said, I was still quite young, so for me it was more of an ambition, really. I just feel like I want to do well. As much as I love Luton, I thought I could maybe progress and go on a little bit further. So yeah, it depends how you sort of take that, really. I use it as positive, and I think some people, they might have seen it in a different way. They might have seen it as a negative, or they might have seen it as a positive. But like I said, I tried to turn all my sort of negative information into positive. So yeah, that's exactly what I did.
And the senior players then at that time, like your Kevin Nichols and Steve Howard and that kind of thing, have obviously got us into this situation where we're in the Championship. How do they react to what's going on? Do they kind of rally round and try and get, you know, the team back to where they were?
Yeah, I think they will do. I think I don't know, like I said, I was young, so I wasn't really in that sort of that main group. So it's hard for me to sort of make a judgment on that. But I'm sure they would have been, because like I said, when we're playing matches and it comes to half time and we're losing, they were the first ones to sort of pick the boys up and let them know what they think. So yeah, I'm sure they would have had, I don't know, probably meetings and little chats on the WhatsApp group saying that they need to do better. Yeah, like I said, I wasn't in that group. I was quite young and I was living at home, and there was nothing for me to really sort of, I don't know, nothing for me to depend on. So yeah, I was also just in my best life playing football. Like I said, they have a lot more to sort of appreciate it.
Sure. And Mike Newell was eventually sacked as well that season. So Kevin Blackwell came in as well. What was he like to work under?
It was a bit difficult, really, because I remember a couple of boys had played with Kevin Blackwell, and they mentioned obviously what he's like and what his coaching plans are like and his training sessions. And I think it was a little bit of a mixed response, really. So yeah, as soon as he come in, he was quite authoritative, and I think some of the boys didn't like that, especially when Mike Newell was in, and he was a bit more relaxed approach, and obviously had a laugh in the giggle where I think Kevin Blackwell was probably a little bit different, and it sort of, I don't know, not divided the group, but I think there were people that were a little bit upset about how he goes about his business.
Yeah, I think that factors through to the fans as well. When you look back at Kevin Blackwell, there's a few that will, yeah, have a few words to say about him. It must have been really bittersweet as well for you, because I was looking before this interview. The fans voted you player of the season that year. So
Yeah.
personally for you know, it was probably the best season you'd had by far. But obviously we ended up getting relegated. So you know, how was that to kind of deal with?
Yeah, it was difficult. Like I said, being a local sort of boy and playing for his local team is phenomenal. But you know, when you keep playing, I'm not too sure how many games there was, but when you play the majority of the season, you're going to attract a little bit of attention. So yeah, I think the club were in a bit of a bad place, and I think it was down to timing really. For me personally, it was a good achievement to play as many first team games as possible. But yeah, it was obviously sad to see that they sort of get points deducted and relegated, and you know players move on. So it was a bit of a shock to the system. However, as you know, football is a game where you play for the club, and then obviously until the club don't want your services, you need to move on. So yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky one.
Did you know then that after that season your time was up? Then you said that the club, you know, when they don't want your services anymore, were you aware that you'd be moving on?
So I remember playing against Hull City, and I remember for some reason I think I played up front. I didn't really understand why. Well, I knew we obviously had a shortage of strikers, and they threw me up front. And I think that's because I played there when I was young. But yeah, a couple of the boys after the game just said to me, why are you happy to play up front?" And I was like, "He's asked me to play. I'll play anywhere." And they actually told me, you know, there was a couple of scouts that were watching. So there were loads of rumours going around. But it wasn't until sort of the summer when I think they called me and just said that there's been a little bit of an interest. So yeah, I think if a club agree to let you go, then it shows that they don't want your sort of services.
And do you think then, you know, as a young player as well, looking back, do you think maybe you were quite happy just to go, yeah, I'll do that. I'm happy to do that. That's fine. Do you think if you were maybe a more senior player at that time, you might have had a few more words to say about where you were playing and that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I think if I was a senior player, then I could obviously sort of stamp my authority down and maybe spoke to the manager beforehand. And maybe if I was an older player, maybe he might not have played me anyway. So I think he probably played me there because he probably knew I wasn't going to say no. And I probably wouldn't say no. Like I said, I wouldn't change it. I think I enjoyed my playing time there when I was there. So I could have played in any position, but yeah, I was just happy to play.
And was it difficult moving away? Because you know you started your career at Luton, you came through the ranks, finally into the first team. I mean, I know you went on to play regular Premier League football. You got promoted with West Brom as well from the Championship. So you had a great career away from Luton. But was it difficult to kind of look back at the club that you started at, kind of fall through the leagues?
Yeah, a little bit. Obviously, like I said, I've played for Luton for so long, and they've made different sort of achievements, and then obviously to see them go basically all the way down to the bottom, it was sort of quite tough. Obviously, I still had friends that had been playing for Luton Town as well, so yeah, a little bit difficult. But it goes back to me saying that players don't stay around at clubs forever. They do move on until they're told otherwise.
And when you look back then throughout your whole career, not just at Luton, is there a particular time or moment that stands out for you?
I wouldn't say there's just the one. I think I had quite a lot of memories there. I think being in the youth team was really good. I think we had a good group. It was quite funny. Probably the best times of my life, really. Also making my debut, that was another achievement that I absolutely loved. Scoring first day of the season against Leicester, that was another one that stood out. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of collective achievements that I enjoyed making, and yeah, if I could do it again, I would do it again every day.
And you said about the youth team being the best time of your life. Why was that? Was it just because you're a young lad going in playing football every day with your friends? What was it about that time that was so enjoyable? Yeah,
just literally going in and playing football every day. Obviously, we had jobs that we had to do, and weren't really getting paid the most. But yeah, I don't know. We'd always have a laugh and a giggle. I think the first team were a little bit too harsh on us at times, but like I said, we were a group of football players that were sort of new to the game. We had no worries, no sort of pendants. It was, yeah, like I said, just playing football. It was really good.
What kind of jobs were you asked to do, and why were they so asked you?
We used to clean boots. We used to give the first team their kit. We used to set out the first team coaching session. We used to have to move the goals. We had to clear one of the, it's called the volleys gym, which is like an AstroTurf with concrete walls. We had to rip out the AstroTurf. So there was loads of little jobs that we had to do, but I think it was all good and all part of our sort of our learning and discipline.
You don't really get that anymore, do you, in football as such?
No, you don't. I don't know whether you're allowed or not, but I don't know. I think nowadays, kids get attracted to too many sort of distractions, such as, I don't know, phones and iPads and stuff like that. I think they need to sort of have another sort of, I don't know, function. Maybe try and just get out and play football.
Are there any ex-players that you're still good friends with now?
Yeah, so the majority of our youth team, I speak to them. Not all of them made professional, but I still speak to them. Just even from other clubs. So as well as Luton, there's Kevin Foley, Curtis Davis, a couple of the youth team players that were there, Steve Howard every now and again, Kevin Nichols, I don't live far from. So yeah, there's quite a few that I still speak to. And like I said, if I was to see them on the street, then I'd have a good chat with them. But yeah, I think they're obviously they're friends for life, not just obviously for the couple of seasons that you're with them.
Oh, that's really nice that you're still good friends with them. Just quickly as well, you're only 32 when you were forced to retire.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know this until I was looking into your career. It was at Northampton, obviously, when you were diagnosed with this heart condition. That must be really difficult to deal with as well. Did you feel like you still had more to give, even though obviously you weren't allowed to carry on?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, 32 as a professional, I sort of put things in place as a 30-year-old to retire at 35. So it comes as a massive shock. Obviously, I was in League Two, and I remember I was struggling with my knee injury and my Achilles that season as well. So by then I thought, is this the time where sort of my body sort of gives way? But I think to retire on something that you can't do nothing about it was hard to deal with at first. But at the end of the day, I prepared for it, and I think football's not going to last forever. So yeah, it was just one of those things. I enjoyed my moments. Obviously, play every game as you can, as best as you can, and train well. But yeah, at the end of the day, you never know when your day finishing football is going to.
And did you ever kind of feel that at all throughout your career, or was it literally just something that came on later on in life?
Yeah, something just come on in one game. It's a bit weird because obviously I was so close to just not telling our physio at the time. So yeah, I could have easily carried on, and my future might have been a little bit different. But yeah, it's a little bit of a lucky one, very lucky, and I'm glad I did tell the physio. But it could happen to anyone, and I think nowadays there's more and more people coming out with heart conditions that probably need to be looked at. And they need to probably have a thorough sort of health check, not just obviously running on the treadmill and seeing how far you can run, but maybe a heart scan and CT scans, and maybe sort of take that on a serious role.
Well, it's really good that you did say something. Yeah, like you say, especially with what I said earlier about Christian Eriksen and Fabrice Muamba and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's good that you that you did say something. I have a closing question that I ask every Luton player that I chat with. So if I was to put your picture in a big scrapbook of Luton players, what do you hope it would say about you, and what do you think you personally brought the club?
I don't know. I'd like to say maybe just hard-working defender. Always wanted to play, local lad from Luton. And what I brought to the club is a bit of a tough one. Well, I definitely brought a fee. So when West Brom bought me, I definitely gave them a fee. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. Hopefully, I've brought them a little bit of history. I think it's good to be part of the club that sort of helped me through my career.
Thanks so much for your time, Leon. It's been a pleasure to get to know a little bit more about your time at Luton yeah, all the best with what you're up to now.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Leon. Thanks, mate.